We are now in the midst of part 7, dealing with the Paleolithic and the turn to imagination. And this time I want to talk about the articulation of the art of the Paleolithic. We have already seen this mammoth from the Rufina cave in one of the early parts. And now we go to Cave Altamira in Spain, where we have a lot of bulls depicted on the walls. Here's the first one, and we take a little look on that a little bit more in detail. So here we have the head of the bull with the horn, one here and one there. Then we have the neck and the back, with a lot of hair up here. Here we have the tail, very realistically placed at the appropriate position. Here we have the two hind legs and here the two front legs. And we see the bull is standing. And if we go ahead and take a look all over the cave, we will find that all the animals are depicted in different positions, like the next one that is cowering, and an entire group with everybody sitting, running, lying on the ground, different positions. About 95% of all the elements painted in these caves are animals. Only very few, like here, depict humans. Here we have a human head. You see the two ears, two eyes, the eyebrows, the nose, and the mouth. But this is only below 5%. There's very rarely you have a human being depicted in any of these caves. Here we are in another cave in Lascaux, and we have two bulls facing each other. They look like being related one to the other. But the other elements, like the stags, which are depicted down here, they are a totally different size. And so it is with all the other elements here in the cave. Here to the right of that first bull on the right, we have a lot of horses. On the other side, we have horses as well. Here we see the size when we look at the two humans. So it's about realistic size, some of the bulls. Here we have a narrow passageway, and you see how difficult it is to put these paintings. You need a scaffold to get up to the ceiling. Here we have some stags swimming through a river. And here we have some lions amongst deer and other animals which are not really painted in detail. Here we have a lot of rhinos taken from Grotte Chauvet. Some of them painted several times above each other. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versions of the same animal. And we have abstract signs as well, like the dots here on the wall. We don't know what they represent. Maybe anything from stars to lava dots flying through the air. And here we have an owl. Birds are very rarely seen in any of these places. And this one here is interesting because it's not painted, but it is engraved. It is engraved by a finger going through the soft mud on the rock surface. Here we have a lot of lion heads. And here I want to direct you to a certain interesting detail. If you look at the bulge over the nose of the animals, so approximately at the height of the eyes, we see that these elements in all versions of these different lions, the shape is always done in the same manner. So we have a certain standardized element that is used to depict different animals in the same manner. And this is not only true for one cave. You have the same kind of standardized shapes in many of the other caves as well. So we have here from Chauvet these many heads, and here we'll have one taken from Lascaux, where you have the same bulge here at the same position where the eye is. It's indeed there, but what is interesting here, it is standardized. It's always the same size, always the same curve. So we see that this kind of painting is done according to a certain standardized scheme. So you have an interesting mixture of a scheme that is used to depict an individual. So it's a mixture of abstraction and realism at the same time. So next we are dealing with the methods and institutions of this symbolic culture of the Paleolithic. And the key question is, how were these masterworks done? And what you need to do that is a method. It's a question of method. And that's what these people have developed. A method that is made up of 4 parts. You need to learn a technique, how to do these paintings. To learn the technique, you have to do a lot of training. And to find your material, you have to learn how to do open air studies and either memorize or make sketches. And finally, you are taken to one of the caves to add some of the masterpieces to the slowly growing archive of the symbolic culture. Let's first look at the technique. There are basically 4 different techniques that you can find in the caves. The one is spraying, and spraying is done either by your mouth directly, like you take a zip of liquid that is colored and spray it on the wall directly, like this way. Or you use a blowpipe, very similar to a modern one, which is made up, for example, of 2 bones. One you stick into your mouth, and the other you stick into the liquid, and then you blow over the edge, and you get a spray. People have used pencils and brushes. Pencils usually made from charcoal, and brushes made from little sticks of wood. Flatten it out at the tip, so it becomes a little bit softer, and then you can use it like a brush. Some of the paintings were done by hand, either directly, like with a picture of the owl, or using some hard tools for doing engraving and scratches. Various methods were pursued in doing sculpturing, but most of them were done by hand. If you wanted to become one of the artists, you first had to show some interest and talent for doing that. When we go into the caves, we see that many children have visited together with grown-ups. So it may well be that these little kids who visited the caves, they were not fully fledged artists, but they were shown around, and those who showed an interest in doing the same kind of painting, they would be those to select for an art school. And then what you have to do some exercises. The easiest way that you can use most often is just flatten some ground and do some exercises with a pencil or a stick. You can do the same on heights or on stone plates. There are some stone plates that exist from these times. And you have to do some exercises on the real stuff. You are going to do that. If you become a master, you are going to do that in the caves, so you need to learn how to do it on a steep rock surface, or even on some of the cliffs and the ceilings that are hanging over you. But most of this has been lost due to erosion, except for some specimens where you find examples of doing exercise work on stone plates and some engraving on cliffs and rocks. The open air studies will have been a typical summer activity, because the little groups would go hunting in summer, and the artists are usually part of the hunting party as well. And so you can see and approach the animals that you want to depict. Most of the animals depicted in the caves came from the vicinity of the living areas of the people who have painted them. So it's a summer activity, and it's sort of done in several steps. Either first you have to approach groups of animals and see what they are doing, and you see that most of them are seen in profile view. So you somewhere cower on the ground and you see a herd passing by. And then you either have to memorize what you have seen, like my painting of the elephant from my first visit to the zoo, which was not really very good. And you see, painting from memory takes a lot of training. All you do is a sketch while you're on the spot. So you have a certain method that is made up of 4 steps that are arranged in a sequence. So you start with training the method. You have to do exercises on the ground and outside. You have to do some observational work. And then you have to, if you have become a master, you go to the caves and paint it. So you have at least 4 positions, 4 scenarios where you have to go through to become a master in the Paleolithic. But one thing is very typical. We have seen that already when we looked at the various pictures, paintings taken from the 3 caves that we have gone into, is all the animals are just depicted in isolation. There is an animal somewhere on the wall, but you don't see a ground. You don't see a horizon. There's no weather. There's no other perspective. And the animals that are close to each other, they come in different sizes. So it's not a perspective showing a herd, but it's only single elements shown in a variety of aspects that are typical for these animals. And that part of an overall composition is missing in Paleolithic cave painting. Now, this is something that we only detect when we go to our next part, part 8, that is the emergence of a sense of order. And see you with part 8, which starts with the Mesolithic next time.